Good day and welcome. Today we are continuing with demand, supply and prices, but going to have an in-depth look in how do we calculate the demand curve, the supply curve, something that we call equilibrium prices, and also some real examples. I do apologize if you hear very loud noises currently. We are having severe thunderstorms, and I don't even think my noise cancelling headphones will cancel this out, so just bear with us. But it's raining, so it's a blessing. Right, so having a look at the goods market again. So remember the two role players, firms and households, where firms are the supplier supplying goods and services, the supply curve, and households are the one demanding the goods and the services. Okay, so we looked at demand, the determinants of demand, the supply, the determinants of supply, what moves on the curve, what shifts the curve, demand or the supply curve. And now we're going to have a look at the calculations thereof. So I say by making use of the table, determine the demand equation. So things that you need to remember is a long time ago, or not so long ago, when you did matric mathematics, you were taught y equals mx plus c. Now we are continuing or building up with this, but I taught you that y is p and x is q because we are working with demand. So now you are going to substitute the x and the y with the p and the q. So the first step is to do that. So you have prices of demand equals, you have your intercept A plus B is your slope QD. Right. The second thing you need to do is calculate the slope B. The slope is calculated by the change in prices divided by the change in quantity. Right. The prices, you can take any combination. So let's take 5.5 minus 5 divided by the change in quantity, 1 minus 2. And you get your slope value as minus 0,5. That is your slope value. Your intercept, you can read off the table. It is where Q is 0, and that is 6. So you have your intercept 6. This means that your demand curve cuts the line there. Right. Now you need to substitute these values into the formula. So you have price of demand equals your intercept plus your slope QD, where your intercept value is 6, your slope is minus 0,5 QD. And you know this is correct because demand has a negative slope. Now you need to get the Q on the left hand side of the equation. So let's get that going. So it's 0,5 QD equals 6 minus PD. Divide so you can get Q alone. QD equals 12 minus, remember there's a 1 there. 1 divided by 0,5 is 2. So that is the demand equation. Let's have a look at the supply. So your supply, you start off again. Y equals mx plus c, where your first step is PS equals your intercept plus BQD. My mistake. QS, because we are working with the supply curve. Right. So your second step is determine your slope. V equals the change in your prices divided by the changing quantity. So you can take any one. Let's take 1 minus 3 with price divided by 0 minus 1, and you get your intercept as 2. It's positive, which is correct because your slope for your supply curve has a positive value. Now you substitute in, or wait, first let's get our intercept. So our intercept is where your quantity supplies equals 0. So your intercept is 1. Now we can substitute everything in. So we have PS equals A plus your slope QS, where your intercept is 1, your slope is 2, and we need to get the Q's on the left hand side. So let's do that. Minus PS divide by minus 2 to get your QS alone. 1 divided by minus 2 is minus 0, 5. Minus divided by a minus is a plus 0, 5 PS. And that is your supply curve value. Right, let's go on. So now what we're looking at is they gave us the two equations, one for the demand equation and one for the supply equation, and say calculate and illustrate equilibrium price and quantity. Now what equilibrium price and quantity is where demand equals supply. So where those 2 points intercept, we have something that we call equilibrium prices and equilibrium quantities. So we can do that. We say, right, QS equals QD, where your quantity supplied is minus 300 plus 40p equals 1,500 minus 60p. So we have 1,800 equals 100p divided by p to get p alone, and you get your equilibrium price as 18. Now what you can do is you can substitute this 18 into either one of the equations to get your quantities. It's supposed to give you the same values for both of the equations. So you have minus 300 plus 40, 18, or then 1,500 minus 60, 18. And in both cases, you will get a quantity equilibrium of 420. Now, if you illustrate this, now that you know what is equilibrium price and quantity, you can fill in the price as 18 and then the quantity as 420. So that is the equilibrium price and quantity. Right, so let's look at the theory examples now. So now we're going to draw. You have been introduced to a demand curve now and a supply curve, and you know now what happens if there's a shift on the curve and whether there's a shift of the curve. But now we need to go put this together in equilibrium, right? And then see what is the effect. So the first question says, consider, now before you even read the question, you do this. Price, quantity, demand, supply, and then your equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Then you start reading. Consider the market for airline, right? So this is what we are working with airlines. Using standard notions of demand and supply, illustrate how the equilibrium price and quantity would change if the following occurs ceteris paribus. Now what ceteris paribus means, it means given that all other things are remaining the same, unchanged, right? So it says holiday makers expect that the price of local airline tickets will rise sharply at the end of November, just before the summer holiday in December. So you need to identify that this is a determinant of demand, tastes and preferences. And people that would like to go on holiday and on December making use of airline ticket will most likely purchase their tickets before December while the price is still low. So we can assume that demand will increase for airline tickets. Now, this is a determinant of demand that shifted the demand curve, meaning that there is a change in demand. So this is what I said, it's a movement of the curve. But look what happened now as a result of this movement of the curve. can you see that a new equilibrium price and quantity has been established in the market? So it seems like due to the fact that there was a change in demand and demand increased, that prices increased. So what did I say when there is a price increase? A price increase indicates that there is a movement on the curve. And look there, it is. Exactly. It's beautiful. It's a movement on the curve. On which curve? On the supply curve. That means quantity will increase. But what quantity? Quantity what? Demand, supply? Because it's the movement on the supply curve, it is quantity supplied. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Consider the market for ice cream. Right, so you have price and quantity, demand, supply, equilibrium, price, equilibrium, quantity. And you have the for ice cream. It says, consider the market for ice cream using the standard notions of demand and supply. Illustrate how the equilibrium price and quantity would change if the following occurs, ceteris paribus. There is a decrease in the price of waffles. Okay, now what has waffles with ice cream has to do with anything? So let's read further. Ice cream and waffles are products that are often consumed together. Aha! So now you need to know what is the definition of a complementary good. It's goods that's used together and consumed together. So this is a complementary good. A complementary good, if the price changes of a complementary good, it's a determinant of demand. So you know now that the demand curve will shift. But will it shift to the left, meaning decrease, or right, increase? There is a decrease in the price of waffles, so more people will be consuming waffles because it's cheaper, so the demand for ice cream will increase because it is used together. So as a result of a change in demand, what happened to the new equilibrium price and quantity? We saw that prices will increase, and as a result of an increase in prices, I taught you, there will be a movement on the curve. Which curve? The supply curve, meaning that your quantity will increase, but what quantity? Your quantity supplied of ice cream will increase. So that is very important. Let's look at the final one. Consider the market for swimming pools and pumps. What? Yes, you have to consider two markets. You have price and quantity, demand, supply, equilibrium, price, equilibrium, quantity. Great. And we have it for pools and pumps. Right. Using standard notions of demand and supply, illustrate how equilibrium price and quantity would change. Ceteris paribus. The production cost of swimming pool increases. Aha. Production cost. Production cost is a determinant of supply, meaning that it's a determinant. So a determinant will shift supply either to the left, decreases, or right, increases. So if pools becomes very expensive to produce, supply will decrease. So it will shift to the left, establishing a new equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So it means prices will increase and quantity will decrease. So a change in supply will result in an increase in prices, which will result in quantity to decrease. But as a result of that change in price, there is a movement on the curve. On which curve? On the demand curve. So it will be quantity demanded. And the pumps, if people are not producing swimming pools anymore, they will not be needing pumps as much. So demand for pumps will decrease. It will result in a decrease in prices and decrease in quantity. So as a result, there was a change in demand and prices decreased, and as a result of the change in price, there was a movement on the curve. On which curve? On the supply curve, and quantity decreased. Which quantity? Quantity supplied. So I hope everything makes a little bit more sense to get it in context and make use of a little bit of examples. In the next video, there is more graphs with regards to demand and supply.